All right, we are now joined by Erik Bakich, head baseball coach here at Clemson University. First off, thank you so much for having us today. Really look forward to getting to chat. I had asked you this kind of off camera before we got started. We were here for the regionals this past season, and just from afar from the stands, it looked like you personally were having the time of your life. Why is that important to really enjoy those type of moments, and what makes this kind of that type of job for you?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. This is great to be on. We don't talk in the terms of job. This doesn't feel like a job. I don't feel like I'm working. This is a lifestyle. The team is fully integrated into our family into the team. And I feel like I'm a dad that, is trying to chase those Christmas morning celebratory moments. And so when you get to the postseason, even though it didn't work out for us these last few postseasons in terms of being the last team standing, it's that chase, it's the pursuit of finding those moments, making those memories, having those experiences for our players that would be those life-lasting kind. And we've had some big moments in the past, the last couple of years, but ultimately it's about creating those celebratory moments for the players as well as the fans.
One of the other things that jumped off right away from being in the stadium was the atmosphere, just like energetic. It was kind of like magnetizing. You were like, I was almost hypnotized just being in here. The fan support, everything about it. What makes Clemson so special?
Yeah, it's the people. And I was here as a volunteer coach in the fall of 2001 to the spring of 2002. Now that team was loaded, number one in the country for like 14 out of 17 weeks or something crazy. They were number one in the country for the majority of it. But the baseball fans here, the history of this program, the people of this community, they just rally behind their sports. And baseball is one of the sports that this community in this part of the country, you're in the Southeast, you have the Braves, and that's it. And so the folks that live in the Southeast just are very passionate about baseball down here because the university teams are their major league team in addition to the Braves. And so seeing how this community rallies around the baseball program just hit me in the face 20-some years ago. And now to be back and to kind of reignite that passion and energy, I would be lying to you if I said that first season, early in the season, it was coming off of a couple of down years. You could kind of just feel the how's this going to go kind of thing. And there wasn't a whole lot of energy. And then somewhere through that 2023 season, the transformation happened. Our team got hot. The fans got hot. Before you know it, they've got balloons like tiger tails waving them. The music's blaring. They're going nuts. Everyone's standing up. They're not sitting on their hands anymore. And it's just evolved from there to where now it's a full-on electric factory. And it's a tough place to play now. It's not just the beer garden. It's not just the Cajun Cafe. It's not just the music. It's all of it, and you can feel it. You can feel that energy on the field, and our players feed off of it, and opposing teams, it can get to them at times.
Building a program, right, when you have to do that, everybody uses the buzzword culture, and everybody kind of thinks of it differently. What is kind of your approach to culture and approach to building a culture?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. Everyone uses culture just like everyone uses family. They're two very common, thrown around words that sometimes lack meaning. For us, we feel like culture takes a long time to build. You have to be very intentional every single day of building a culture. You don't just walk in and say, new coaching staff, here's the culture. What you do is you create an environment, you form and shape an environment. So we have this classroom environment that we're here sitting in, and a lot of the standards of our program are talked about in here and building the total person, not just the ball player. And then we have an environment out on the field that's more of a playground culture. It's more of we've got to be able to trust our training and go out and play mentally free, feel free to make mistakes so that we can optimize our performance out there. But you create these environments, and then these environments over time then build the culture, but the environments are shaped by the decisions and the choices that the players make and the standards of the program every single day.
The landscape of college athletics and college baseball has changed. So within building that culture, do you find it's harder to carry momentum year over year or build that culture? Do you feel like you have to start from scratch because of kind of the transient nature and the way things have changed now? Or is it kind of similar to how it's always been?
So it's different everywhere. Our program, we will never be the revolving door transactional type of program. That's never going to be our intent. Our intent will always be to have this transformational program that is built off of the high school player. The majority of our team has to be those kids that we have 3 and 4 year relationships with, but then we fill the holes and plug the gaps with that transfer portal type player. So 2/3 of our recruiting, just looking at our last few recruiting classes, have all been high school kids, and then 1/3 have been plugging in with those transfers. And that's a good model to have, so we're not turning over a roster every single year. But it does get tougher when you only are coaching guys for a 1-year grad transfer, a 1-year junior who comes in to get drafted. It makes it more difficult. So more even so on the front end, does the environment and the culture you're attempting to build have to be fully transparent, has to be zero ambiguity so that these guys coming in know exactly what they're coming into, and there aren't any over promises and under deliveries. It's more of, this is how we do things here. We have this classroom environment. We spend a lot of time in this classroom building the teammate, building the person. We're going to talk about leadership and character traits and ways to optimize performance from the neck up in this room. This isn't just a roll the balls out there type of place. And sometimes they want the roll the balls out there type of place, especially as a transfer player. So it's just making sure you get in the right guys.
You mentioned the classroom we're sitting in several times and how important it is to the culture and to the program. How did you kind of go about building this phase of it and what you want it to look like?
Yeah, so we all have mentors, and, Jack Leggett gave me the very first opportunity to be a coach, and his classroom was the field. And he would sit the players down in the dugout, and he would legit have classroom sessions and talk about life skills and how to play and how to be a Clemson baseball player. It just wasn't in a classroom. And then Tim Corbin was an assistant coach on that staff, and I got to go be his assistant coach at Vanderbilt for 7 years, from the summer of 2002 to the summer of 2009. And he really revolutionized the classroom, seated classroom, university style academia classroom. And I thought just kind of really set the standard of what that should look like, of how to mold and shape people and make them better men, better teammates, better people, not just better baseball players. And so that was the inspiration, and feel like he does it just in an incredible way. And so we've taken that model and then just made it our own and put a lot of little spins and twists on it so it fits kind of what we're doing. But the original idea was from that coaching tree that I was a part of. And every coach has a different version of a classroom, but Jack Leggett's was more on the field. Coach Corbin's was in a room like this. And so we've been fortunate that this room was here. We just had to get different chairs, get the desk on top so they could take notes, got iPads now, got a projector screen. And so we try to maximize this space, but it's not the biggest, not the most expensive room in this facility or part of this facility, but it's the most valuable.
Do you feel like your approach has had to change as the kind of generations change of players and who they are? Is there a mental thing or two that you have to focus more on because of, I always go back to thinking about how prevalent social media is and instant gratification. That's kind of the generation of guy we have. Is that something that, especially in this classroom setting, that you're having to teach about or coach out of them? Or because you also mentioned earlier, like, telling them that it's okay to fail. And in a generation where everything on social media looks perfect, it's tough to do, I would imagine.
Yeah, so there's two ways to look at this. So social media inherently has created a very self-centered generation of young people, not necessarily intentionally, but more the unintended consequence of always doing this. Look at me, look how awesome I am, look, and posting that, everyone's personal highlight reels puts this target right here on look at me, look what I'm doing, look how awesome I am. So it's very much this approach of it's all about me. And then in a team setting, you got to shift that target onto your teammates, the people to the left and right of you, and serve them as much as you're thinking of just developing yourself. Now, obviously, getting recruited, showcasing your abilities, develop self-development, like those are critical components to even get in this room. But once you get in this room, there has to be this shift of the target of you got to love the team more than you love your individual role. And that's obviously much, much harder to do than it is to say. So there's that component of social media. And then the second component, which you alluded to, Barstool Sports wasn't a thing, right?
Right.
When we played, or at least when I played. And so what I've noticed when we're talking about playing mentally free is eliminating the fear of making mistakes, but that's so also harder to do than it is to say, because anything silly or stupid that they do on the field could show up online, and they would be at the public ridicule, or at the end of a public ridicule where you got people that, can hide behind a keyboard and say whatever they want. So I think there's kids growing up in an era where they are afraid to fail even more so, not just what typically is because they have high expectations or perfectionists or don't want to disappoint, but now they're actually worried about what other people think. And they're worried about what other people think so much more than they used to be because they're exposed to what other people think on social media, because it's just part of the social media culture now to comment on other people's posts. And then you have these freaking idiots out there that take it upon themselves to only post negative shit.
Yep. How do you go about then breaking kind of down some of those barriers so that they can be comfortable failing? Because for me, baseball is so unique because it's so hard. I mean, it is, it's a sport where you are going to fail a ton. And if you haven't or you don't fail, you probably haven't played enough or at a high enough level, right? So you're playing at Clemson, playing at a very high level, you're going to fail. It's bound to happen. How do you go about breaking down those barriers? And what about the practice field allows for that?
Yeah. So two parts. So one, who cares what other people think? And just Tigers don't value the opinions of sheep, right? So we try to instill in them that if there are people that are, broadcasting hate or criticism, you just have to take it with a grain of salt and just know that's part of being an athlete today. You're up for public criticism because you're willing to actually be in the arena and face that criticism. So the second part is a lot of what we talk about is part of this deeper level of happiness is understanding not why you play, but why did the 10-year-old self start playing? If your 10-year-old self was seated right here, ask him why he plays baseball. And our players go through this exercise, and it's actually fascinating because what the common answers have something to do with they love baseball, they love to compete, they're doing it for a family member or somebody close to them in their life. And one of the biggest ones is they love having fun with their friends.
Yep.
And so if these kids today that are competing in a totally different game, totally different visibility on them at all times, but if they're going to truly pull out and extract their best performances, they have to return to that innocent, childlike, little league, 10-year-old self. Why did that kid play? And focus on that, because that is where that big smile showed up. Those Christmas morning celebratory moments, not caring what other people thought, and just going for it, feeling free to make mistakes, not worried about what other people were thinking. That's huge. And it's also harder to do than it is to say, but that's a big part of the program for our guys to actually play at their best.